Hey, deserving listeners, I'm going back in time and watching Tania and Syngin. Let's watch.
Is this like a soulmate relationship? And Syngin was like, yeah, I feel like it is. Like, she came and she found me and like our souls met. I'm like, I've never thought of you as a soulmate. I was like, I feel like I've found a soulmate. And he's like, who? And I was like, my first love.
Okay, so I haven't been showing all the clips, but there's been a fair amount of talk about soulmates and what does that mean, and are you a soulmate? And the way that Tania seems to be framing it is like it's a scientific designation when it is not. It is a extremely amorphous social construction that each individual makes an individual judgment call in a particular moment that could change. I guarantee you, if you're past a certain age, you have thought someone was a soulmate, and now looking back, you're like, no, we were not soulmates. So unless you have some supernatural belief system in, I don't know, the stars or God or something that you literally have a soulmate. I think there was an ancient Greek myth that all humans are separated before birth, and like humans are, they have 4 legs and 4 arms and 2 heads, and you're separated, and then you spend your lifetime trying to find that person again. I don't know if that's apocryphal, but anyway, it's a lovely story, but it doesn't really bear out in the data, because if there was a soulmate, and usually people are like this one person, that would be a pretty cruel way to design humans, because there are 8 billion people or close to it on the planet. The chances of you coming across your soulmate is extremely low. The fact that you might even speak the same language is also lower. So that wouldn't make any sense. And plus, why would we evolve that way? Especially back in the day when the chance of you coming across people, 100 miles away was basically zero. So the idea of a soulmate is, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. We are born, some of us, most of us, to couple with other people, to fall in love, to bond, to procreate, to have children. Not everyone, of course, but a good percentage of us. And at the very least, to couple, right? To bond, fall in love. Sometimes polyamorously, sometimes monogamously, sometimes serial monogamy. But we clearly see a lot of behavior in humans pointing towards, oh my God, I'm in love with you. I want to be with you. I want to kiss you. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. A lot of us have experiences like that with multiple people. So the idea that there's a soulmate is fine if it's not destructive. It can be destructive, though, because some people will say, well, I'm fighting with my partner. Does that mean we're not a soulmate? Because they have this idea of a soulmate as being no fights or something. Or it's 7 years into a relationship and the energy is starting to, cool off a little bit. And you're like, maybe we're not soulmates, because soulmates stay in love forever. And it's certainly, if you have that wish to be in love forever and you want to search your entire life for that sort of thing, some people do find that, then that's fine. But to believe that scientifically there's a person out there that dispositionally, without any need for work in a relationship, you'll just naturally feel 1,000,000,000% in love with, that doesn't make a lot of sense. And she said something interesting here, which is that she's like, I don't really feel like Syngin is my soulmate. I feel like my first love was my soulmate. And that's an interesting thing to say, because I think that would resonate with a lot of people, in that the love you feel the first time can, not all the time, be extremely intense. And there are various different reasons for that. One is because we're young and stupid and we don't understand how the world works or how love works. And we have this delusion that the feelings we're having are going to stay, that we're never going to fight, that our love might even be special, like it's a love that no one's ever had before. And there are various other reasons for this, or this is the first time. Think of the first time that you went on a roller coaster, or the first time that you went on an airplane, or the first time that you had an alcoholic drink, or the first time you had a cigarette, or the first time that you, I don't know, drove a car on your own. These are things that stick with us because it's the first time. Why do they stick with us? It's because it's very novel. Novelty tends to stick with us. And falling in love for the first time is very novel. It's a very novel feeling. It's a feeling that's very much inside of us, ready to go, ready for us to bond and procreate and have sex and bear children. And that feeling, obviously, we evolved to have so that we will bond, so that we will procreate. Again, not everyone is like this, and certainly same-sex couples aren't like this. They don't bond necessarily to procreate biologically. They still have. Anyway, point is that we have this drive, and the first time you feel that drive, when you're 16 or 25 or something, it can be so intense. Looking back, you can make the mistake that that's real love, because the love I feel with you is not that way. It doesn't feel like it did when I was 14. And I've always been trying to, and for people who might have a narcissistic idea of what love is supposed to be, or they've been told the wrong thing, or they have an idealistic idea, or they have relational traumas that make them very suspicious of relationships that don't feel 100% awesome and secure, then they might really shoot themselves in the foot by searching for that feeling that they felt when they were 16 as an adult, which could happen. It's not like it doesn't. Certainly there can be glimpses of that, but often the intensity is not likely to be reproduced for good reasons. When we have that intense love when we're young, we often will make terrible choices, maybe even falling in love with the wrong person. And so there's pros and cons to that kind of love. I think that's pretty obvious when you actually hear all the stories. But anyway, so she's saying that he's not a soulmate. So I think she's talking in that way of like, there's this scientific thing of like, there is a soulmate. There is that one person out there. And again, if you believe that and it doesn't destroy your life, then okay, but it could. The other thing is she told Syngin, you're not my soulmate. I feel like this other person was my soulmate. I don't know why you would say that, right? Now, if it's true, maybe it's okay to say it. You would want to say, I'm sorry that I'm saying this, but I had an intense love. Especially if the person had died, maybe you'd say like, look, my love for that person is so intense. I'll never love anyone like I did with them, but I do love you. She didn't really do that. So I don't know. I'm getting the impression like she might have turned a corner where she might be extremely ambivalent about the relationship, which make total sense. But she doesn't know how to frame it, so she's framing it in this like soulmate language as a way of justifying her feelings. I don't know. Let's watch.
I was like, I feel like I'm still in a search of like, what are soulmates even? Like, are you only allowed to have one? Can you have multiple? Like, soulmates, I've only known you for so long that maybe I'll get that feeling later. Like,
yeah, and that's great. These are explorations that she's making. She's just like, it's that confusion, and people have it when you're in a relationship and it doesn't really feel right. And she's trying on wedding dresses, which you would think you would pump the brakes on a wedding if you're talking like this, but she's confused. She's like, I don't know, is he the one? Is this the right choice? I feel like maybe not. I'm not quite sure. And she's having those questions, which is fine. And I've had many clients come to me with this issue. It's a real common thing that people will come to therapy for. And I've gone on that journey of exploration with many people. And what I'll tell you is the path to discovery can be long and meandering. And this idea that somehow if you should just know, you should just know if this person is right for you. And particularly if you have relational traumas growing up and other kind of personality issues, it can be really hard to answer that question in the short term. So there's a lot of talk and exploration. Who am I? What do I feel? What do I want? How does this person make me feel? What's the normal amount of conflict? What's the normal amount of ambivalence about a relationship? And there are questions that I'll ask like, Can you live with this person the way that they are the rest of your life? Are you in love? Have you felt more in love with other people? Is it, do you need to feel that intense love with this person? What kind of life do you want? There's just a lot of questions, and she seems to be exploring that, which is fine.
I didn't know you said all those things to him. I feel bad for him now. Marriage is such a commitment. You are committing to him.
Exactly.
That's what marriage is. And at the same time, you're like, but you're not my soulmate. It's like, that's would crush somebody.
Yeah, amen. Now, if she doesn't want to marry him, then fine. I mean, absolutely. Or if she wants to pump the brakes, absolutely. If she is saying, I don't know if I'm really in love with you, maybe I will be in the future, okay. But to just kind of, the way, I didn't show the clip, but the way she did is just like, yeah, you're not my soulmate. I don't know what to tell you. And it was after an astrology reading, so maybe she thought like, look, it's in the stars, man. It's science. The stars say you're not my soulmate. Even though the astrologer didn't say that. The astrologer basically said, everything's fine star-wise. I don't even, anyway, don't get me started.
Seems like she's maybe a little fearful of just the whole idea of getting married. She's probably still has this fear in her of even being a bride, which is why she's so hesitant with looking like a bride and feeling like a bride.
You don't feel like you should have had that type of conversation, though, before saying, like, yes, let's get married?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's her sister. Yeah, that's the best question to ask. You don't think you should have kind of worked this out before you decided to get married? It sounds like you're on the fence. And saying things to him that are pretty hurtful, like just imagine you're about to get married and your fiancé is just like, yeah, you're not my soulmate. My soulmate is my ex, but I'll marry you anyway. Yeah. I understand that she's confused and ambivalent, totally fine. How about just call off the wedding? Just be like, hey, let's take a break let's put it further in the future.
Yeah, but like, would it have changed anything? Like, I still love him.
I think he understands the concept of what she was saying, but it's the way she words things comes off different than what she had anticipated. And I think his emotional response to that, I mean, I would be crushed too, just for it to be worded that way. It's like...
Yeah, I think her sister is putting it really well. It's like, okay, it kind of sounds like your first love was intense, and this love isn't like that, but you do definitely love him and want to marry him. But the way you worded it to him, obviously it would hurt his feelings. Yeah, the way she worded it was hurtful. And so why would she do that? Why would Tania? Because I think she's pretty good at predicting, mentalizing how other people are going to feel when she says something. So I wonder if she's trying to sabotage it because her love is more shaky than she's admitting outwardly or something. I don't know.
Like, okay, I get it. You've had other loves in your life, but that's still kind of, hard to take.
No one gives you a guide of like when you get married, like how sure are you supposed to be? Mm-hmm. Like no one tells you that.
Yeah, that I'll agree with, Tania. Well, they do tell you that. The typical message is 110%, all the Disney movies and all the rom-coms. It's like, you are absolutely sure about this, when in reality, some people aren't. I'll tell you, when I got married to my pod wife, I wasn't ambivalent at all. I was like, yeah, let's do this, So there wasn't any kind of hesitation from me. But anyway, I'm not saying I'm better. I'm just saying that was just circumstantially the way that it was. That's what I'm saying. Certainly, good people can. Before the wedding being like, oh, I don't know, is this, especially when they're kind of pressured by visa processes and that kind of thing. So yeah, we don't tell people that there can be some ambiguity, the cold feet scenario or syndrome. What's normal, and what I will tell people is there's no way to know. And I think what we've told people is that there's sort of a system for getting to understand, is this right? Is this a soulmate? Is this the right relationship? If you go online, I'm sure, in fact, let me Google it. So I just Googled, how do you know they're the one? And there are thousands of articles, and this one's on Bustle, written by Sandora Baum. The 18 signs that they're the one. What's it called? 18 early signs your partner is the one. So I'll read these, but as a caveat to this, what I've found with people is, how do we decide? Because, it's kind of a binary choice if you're monogamous. There's either this person or not this person. You can't say, well, I want pizza today and this tomorrow. If it's monogamy, you're planning on being with them the rest of your life, it's either yes or no. It's black or white. And so how do you know? Well, there's no way. You're trying to predict the future, essentially. It's like trying to predict the weather, right? You're trying to say, what will happen in the future? Will we stay in love? Will we fight too much and break up? Will they cheat on me and leave me? You're trying to predict that. And when we word it that way, we understand we can't predict that. There's no way. Clearly people try and get married, and half of marriages are usually, most marriages are, if not all, are based on this notion of we're going to stay together for the rest of our lives, unless you're Evelyn. And 50% of marriages end in divorce. And so apparently we are terrible individuals at predicting whether or not we're going to stay together, whether or not the relationship, whether or not the marriage is a good idea or not. And so the question of how do I know, that's Whitney Houston. How do you know? How do I? Da, 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 da. Anyway, and the way that I have talked with clients about this is getting to know who you are, getting to know your core, and that can take a lot of time. I've worked with people for 5 years, and they're like, they've gotten in connection with who they are, like 50%. It can take a long time. Then you have to test it out, and do I want this? How do I feel about this? What's the alternative? What's my life mission? Because the way that it's often framed when it comes to love and marriage is it's like this magnetism, this thing that just compels you, Cupid's arrow, that kind of thing. You don't have any choice. You need to have this person. And some people, it can feel that way, but for a lot of people, particularly later on, particularly if you've had conflict, it doesn't feel that way. It's more of like a choice that you make of just yes, I could break up with my fiancé and start dating again. So that's often a question that I'll ask is someone's like, oh, I don't know. I'll be like, okay, so let's just hypothetically, you break up and you start dating again. How do you feel about that? This isn't always a good litmus test, but it can be. For people that I find are mostly in the camp of staying with the person, they'll be like, oh, I don't want to date. I don't want to date other people. I don't have any interest in, being with other people or, no. Now it could mean that they don't want to be with anyone. But anyway, let's read this, I'm guessing, ridiculous article. Number 1, you have fun even when you don't make plans. You have fun even when you don't make plans. Okay. You're fully authentic with each other. Okay, what does that mean? I mean, certainly some couples are extremely honest and some aren't, which isn't necessarily an indication of good or bad. Conversations flow naturally. Okay. I mean, I think these are signs that your relationship is okay. And maybe, and if they're not like this, then you should say, oh, maybe I'm, but you should know, if a conversation doesn't flow naturally and you're in a relationship, I would hope that you'd be in connection with yourself and be like, something doesn't feel right? I don't need someone to tell me that. Anyway, you're both equally invested in the relationship. Okay. You feel comfortable telling a few secrets. That's okay. They want to listen. All right. They're genuinely kind. Okay. You share values and want the same big things in life. That's, certainly that would apply to a lot of people on that. They should listen to that one on the show. You respect each other's differences. Okay. Your friend and family love them. You both admit to mistakes. Yeah, that's a big one. Your lives easily mesh together. Your first argument goes well. I don't know how many people have arguments that go well, especially the first time. Things are moving forward steadily. Their words match their actions. You feel like you've known them forever. I mean, these are just like tips for how to evaluate if someone is a good person. You know? Things feel different from other different from other relationships. Okay, that's it. Things feel different from other relationships. That could trip someone up, because for someone like Tania, and I don't know if Syngin is for Tania, but if you said that to Tania would be like, well, but my first love, it felt so much more intense, so maybe he isn't the one. Their happiness is most important to you. Actually, that's an interesting one. Yeah. Do you care about making them happy? You know, are you concerned? Because that is a sign of love and bonding. You know, is their happiness like a part of your life sort of mission, you know? And if obviously it's mutual, then that's great. So anyway, you know, imagine you answer all these questions and they're all in the positive and you're like, oh my God, I'm dating the one. You know, I don't think that makes a lot of sense. Or maybe it's like, well, they're the one, but I don't want to marry them. Anyway, my point is that what I found for people, and again, I've been on many journeys of exploration with people over years and years. It's a path. This is how I describe it. This is what I sort of said at the beginning. It is a journey, to be cliche. It's not something that, there's not a system to it. You have to do the walking through. You have to be like talking and thinking and journaling and therapy and talking with friends and feeling how relationships work and thinking about the future and thinking about the past and talking and therapy and experiencing. And you just keep doing this over and over and over again. And eventually what I find, and it could take a week, it could take 5 years, a certainty will emerge, and the person will say, I think I figured it out. And there's no specific way of getting there. You know, it's like with my wife, you know, it's like, how did I know that I wanted to marry her? How did I know that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with her? There's so many ambiguities. How could I have possibly been able to predict the future? I couldn't. How could I know? Well, long story short, I thought about it and talked about it and looked at the past and looked at the future and thought about it and talked about it. And I was like, yeah, you know, this feels right to me. And, you know, I don't know what journey she went on, but something similar, I'm guessing. And it just feels right to you. But it's not something that, like with Tania, it would be something like it would take time to discover, does it feel right or not? You know, if it doesn't feel right, if it feels wrong, then you should listen to that, right? But if it doesn't feel wrong and it doesn't feel right, you don't know how it feels, that's where exploration and talking and journaling and therapy and experiencing and talking, and, you know, you just keep doing that. And what I find is, again, a certainty emerges from that.
No guy tells you. And my heart's like, yeah, he is. But then my mind is like, but is he really? Like, so it's like, so, you know, it's like, what?
That's why they call it the leap of faith.
Do they call it a leap of faith? I think they call religion a leap of faith, but I don't think you should get married on a leap of faith. I think you should have some rational. So what she's saying is, my heart wants to be with him, but my head is like, I don't know. Okay, you know, that's fine. It sounds like you're just don't get married. Wait until you're certain, you know. So her ambiguity is fine. She doesn't know, and she barely knows him, really. I mean, they haven't been dating that long, I don't think. And yeah, I wouldn't recommend people take a leap of faith in that. Like, what faith are you going off of? Like, that things will just magically work out? Like, no.
Well, this definitely doesn't make me want to get married in this dress now.
Yeah, can we try
all
the
that
other
juju
dress?
is on this dress. Can we go on another one now?
True. That just kind of put a damper, all that negativity.
All right, well, that is it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself, because you deserve it. You really, really do.